Hello and welcome to the Startups of London podcast. I'm your host Ozan and the founder of Startups of London. Today, I'm joined by Fabienne Hajjar, General Manager of ServCorp. So ServCorp is a multinational PropTech company offering office locations around the world, and they have, I think, 4 locations in London. They have offices available in Mayfair, Canary Wharf, and other locations. So apart from being the GM of ServCorp, Fabienne is also a healthcare professional with a PhD in pharmacy and has been building skills around professional and personal coaching and development. So I can feel that growth mindset already. Welcome, Fabienne. How's your day going?
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Ozan, for having me. It's great to be here.
I thought it would be interesting for our audience to have you as a guest and have a chat, as you've been working with many startups and entrepreneurs over perhaps 10 years that use your locations.
Yes. I've joined ServCorp 12 years ago. And throughout all my career, I have supported many startups, entrepreneurs, even people working from home and starting from their first idea and then starting with ServCorp locations and then growing to multinational companies across the years. So yeah, I have a lot to say through our talk about startups and how to help them grow within a ServCorp environment.
That's so we have a lot to chat about. But first, for some context, can you give me perhaps a brief overview of what ServCorp is and your role within the company, how it has evolved over the years?
Absolutely. So just to talk a bit about ServCorp quickly, to brief you, ServCorp was founded in 1978 by the CEO, who is still actually the CEO, Alfred Mufarrij, in Australia, in Sydney. And then we've expanded through the past 4 decades across the world. We have now 125 locations in 23 different cities across the world. And we continue our expansion. ServCorp actually started an MLC center in Sydney. And we've created the virtual office product in 1986, which I will talk about that later on, how we can support startups. I started with them 12 years ago and as a normal floor manager. And I grew my career with ServCorp to become the general manager at this point.
It's quite a story. I'm very curious. Over the last 10 years, what is the change you observed in your stereotypical customer?
Wow, that's a really good question. For a decade ago, we wouldn't be able to really explain what a workspace solution is, what a flexible workspace solution is. And if I look back and say, today I'm actually looking at promoting ServCorp or helping startups, they actually are looking for us. And I've seen that people have changed from a dedicated office where they have their own reception, they have their own things, until now where they look for us. They actually look for a flexible workspace. So the mindset has changed. People don't want to get locked up in their space. They actually want to work with others. They want to learn from others. They want to be in a community. And ServCorp provides 60,000 clients accessible to these startups in a community, which we call it a ServCorp home. So I've seen people refusing to work in a shared space to actually looking to work into shared space. I hope this is what you're looking for and an answer, Ozan.
Yeah, I think that's very relevant. But I'm also curious about the stereotypical entrepreneur in terms of like the idea of the classical entrepreneur. Has that changed over the last years in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of what type of businesses they're building and so on?
Wow, of course it changed. It changed in a dramatic way, especially if we want to talk about entrepreneurs behind a desk and now virtual entrepreneurs. I mean, can you imagine with technology, the kind of businesses that are starting up and ideas that we see every single day that amazes me. I mean, 10 years ago, we were thinking like, I want to trade. An entrepreneur is more into trading and more into probably financial solution. And now an entrepreneur has no limits. of the ideas that they can actually develop, especially from a digital perspective. I've seen startups and SMEs and entrepreneurs start with a small idea and then digitalize, grow, dramatically. So yeah, we've seen that people working from home, which that already we knew years back, and now they're actually trying to digitalize their businesses and then growing their businesses and being global, which takes me back to a point that really is interesting from a Servcorp perspective. We have a slogan that now we are promoting within 2020 and 2021, and hopefully within 2022, the power of big when you are small. And I think every single startup or entrepreneur listening to me understands what I mean by the power of big when you are small, because we all start at a certain time. Servcorp was a startup, by the way, in 1978. We were tiny bitsy startup with our CEO's idea, and he built the first office by drawing on the floor with chalk. It's like, okay, this is going to be my office, and the next one I will build it will be my client's office. So we started as a startup. We started small, but then the vision to be big. And this is exactly what we provide to the startups, Ozan. This is what we tell them. You start in London, you start in Mayfair. We'll talk about more on locations and what is important for an entrepreneur, but we give them the ability to be in 125 locations across the world. So yes, small, but actually they are really big.
You have offices in London as well as in many other countries. How do you think London differs as a startup ecosystem? What is good, what is bad, advantages and disadvantages compared to other parts of Europe, the Levant region, Asia, and the Mediterranean?
Well, this is a great question, because I really need to tell the startups and the entrepreneurs in London how privileged they are from establishing their company. They can go online, set up their company, and then boom, they are legal. Compared to 50% or half of the part of the world, it's so difficult to establish a company and then grow your idea from scratch. That in the Levant region, even in Europe, or in Asia, or even in Australia, it's not that easy. You have to spend thousands of pounds as an investment just to legalize the activities of your company. Where in London, it's just really easy. It's online. You have practically zero cost to do it, and you can start marketing and then growing. So this is one of the biggest advantages when we talk about starting up in London. And then also the exposure. The exposure is huge. London is one of the biggest financial cities in the world. This is huge. This is something that startups need to take advantage of. Now, the way I see it, I don't see disadvantages, to be honest. I see challenges where, of course, if you have the easiest way to start up, on the other hand, what happens is that you have competition. But that can be easily dealt with. I imagine this is one of the challenges that probably startups and entrepreneurs in London have.
In terms of the startup culture and the startup ecosystem, because I think you have a very interesting perspective, having offices all around the world and observing them for a period of time. What do you think is particularly different about the people in London building a business, building a startup? How are they different than other parts of the world?
To be honest, I don't see they are different. Actually, I think they're very privileged. I think from an ecosystem perspective, they have facilities. They have a lead, and what they don't realize is that they have the chance to expand from London in an easy way, much more than the other part of the world. And this is honestly my personal experience. I've seen a lot of startups struggle in other areas. It's easy to get exposure. At least is your support system. How are you going? Are there? How are you? The support system is hard to get.
So the idea that people in London, I think, share something similar with different entrepreneurs around the world is really exciting. And I think we have a lot to infer from that. I'm curious about is how big is ServCorp? I think this is relevant because life changes as a company grows. And I think there are some perhaps lessons in the growth of ServCorp for other younger startup entrepreneurs there.
Absolutely. I think if we take ServCorp, regardless of the product that we provide, and take it to explain how a startup started, like ServCorp as a startup started, and then how we became publicly listed in 1999, and how we became a global company after 4 decades. I'm just going to briefly describe the way how we were a one-person's company with my CEO, as I mentioned earlier, drawing on the floor his next office from an idea perspective, and then to become publicly listed and global. So he had a vision, he had an idea, like any startup person or any entrepreneur has an idea. He implemented the idea small, but then he wanted actually to be big. And to be big, you needed the best location, the best address to put on your business card. You needed to impress your clients. This is why ServCorp along the way chose the best locations in the world. So we're in Mayfair, in Devonshire House, we're in Leadenhall Building for a reason, because they are iconic locations. We're in Dashwood House, of course, we will be in Canary Wharf, but these are iconic locations that give an entrepreneur the image of being big. So this is what we do. We are in Tower 1 World Trade Center in New York. So we are in the best buildings for a reason. Then afterwards, when we started to say like, okay, we want to grow, we grew to the second country, to the second location. But there is always an aha moment when you see like, okay, now I've built an idea. What will make me survive for decades? And our aha idea was actually building IT solutions and IT infrastructure. So this is what I actually have a message to the startups. Yes, you grow your idea. Yes, the entrepreneur has probably done his job in terms of market study, but have an aha moment where say like, okay, I'm not building a business for the next 5 years. I am building a business that will be publicly listed. I'm building a business that needs to grow. Which support system I need to have, and what would be my aha moment? What would make me survive decades? And what made ServCorp survive is the IT infrastructure. It's our technology solutions, where going back to the pandemic, which I'm sure, Ozan, you will ask me about it, we survived during the pandemic compared to other flexible workspace solutions because of our IT infrastructure, because our virtual office allowed people to work remotely. Our virtual office allowed them to work from home, but still run their business. We were able to answer the clients' phones. They took their phones with them. They took their support admin team with them from home, and then they continued business working without actually being physically in the office. So again, an entrepreneur needs this revelation or this continuity to be able to survive. And the virtual office actually helped.
I'm kind of curious about the virtual office. What do you mean by the virtual office? Is it someone picking up the phones? Is there anything?
Well, I mean, this is a great question, because what I would like to help startups and entrepreneurs with is the virtual office. That is the perfect product for them. And what actually the virtual office provides, it provides the 5-star or the iconic location as an address for their business. So they can put it on their business cards, on their website. It actually can increase their Google search, by the way, because when you look at an address, a business address like one Mayfair location, Devonshire House, and you put it on your business card, this is a very well location. This is an iconic location. Or if you put Tower 1 World Trade Center in New York, this will increase people actually finding you because you're connected to an address that is very popular. So that's one thing. The second thing is that every single client would receive a dedicated landline number. Now, dedicated landline number is important. People, a lot of them would come to me and say, like, we use our mobiles. Yeah, but do you really deal all the time with people only on mobiles? Don't you want to give the impression that you have a base, you have a support team, you have a receptionist who is dedicated and who is not a virtual receptionist, who will pick up the phone within your company name and answer. So this is important as well. In addition, access to co-working space. My CEO in our latest annual report said one thing. I mean, people are talking about hybrid co-working, right? Like where you can work remotely or from home, or you can choose to work from an office place. You've heard of hybrid co-working, yeah? We've created the hybrid co-working 30 years ago when we created the virtual office, because the virtual office is actually exactly that. It is hybrid co-working. It's your choice to operate from home because you have the IT infrastructure to support it. But you can also come and work from our co-working spaces if you want actually to work from an office space. So we wrote the manuals on what remote work remotely is about. And that's why when COVID and the pandemic hit, we didn't have a problem with that. We were ready already. We've been ready for decades.
You do have quite a bit of a history, I must admit.
Yes, and it really helped us to overcome the challenge of the pandemic. And it actually helped our clients. I cannot tell you how many feedback I've got from clients throughout last year.
Yeah.
When we said we are still operational, don't worry. Because even with the pandemic, people were scared to get out of their houses or their homes, but they actually wanted to still be productive. We helped them.
Talking about the clients that you mentioned, I'm very curious about the particular companies and startups that use your spaces and became particularly successful. Do any names come to mind? Who were they? What do they do? Not necessarily in London, but around the world.
Me being based in the Levant area specifically, I have a lot of companies, but people wouldn't be basically know them or not, but just a small thing like Qatar Living, for example. I mean, if people now Google Qatar Living, they started out of our virtual office 10 years ago, and these people just grew.
Wow.
They grew. And I mean, this is a small example only from this part of the world. But we have a lot of examples, even in London, from a consultancy perspective, from an IT, finance solutions, retail, events. I mean,
the reason I ask about this, like why I'm particularly curious about this, have you observed these successful companies doing anything different to be successful when compared to the ones that haven't made it?
I mean, I did, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying really to say like they have to be with well, kind of, I'm kind of saying they have to be with ServCorp, but to be honest, 90% of startups struggle to survive, and well, 5 to 10% actually make it really a decade. I can assure you that the ones who has been more than a decade are still ServCorp clients until today. Even if they moved out of our physical space, they still have their virtual office in a ServCorp location because, well, this is how they started, but this is also how we help them grow beyond that particular location. And I'm saying startups who take a virtual office or a workspace solution with ServCorp would stay and their business would grow with the company. And this is important because, again, the power of big when you are small, and this is what we give them. I'm sure there are a lot of workspace solutions in London, specifically in the UK and across the world. But my advice is, and this is something I need the entrepreneurs and the startups to think what exactly I need from a workspace or from a support system to succeed. And we got used to the idea that an office space or a workspace solution is just a space, which is completely untrue. And this is what is provided now in the market. It's a space where you work, but that's not it. It's actually, as I mentioned, a location, an address, an infrastructure, an IT, a simple IT solution. Like, Ozan, if you call my number today, I have in the UK or in anywhere in the world, I have a dedicated landline number and a one phone application that rings on my mobile. And when I travel, because I'll be in London in a couple of weeks, my clients in Germany, my clients in Dubai, my clients in the UK, or even my team or business partners would be able to reach me wherever I am with zero cost.
Yeah, I think that's valuable. I'm also curious about the aspect of entrepreneurs empathizing with our audience here for a second. There are different businesses and different lines, and the services that you provide are very, very valuable. But there are also other aspects to being in entrepreneurship. I'm very curious that you've observed what type of people you've seen didn't quite make it. What type of people, what type of attitudes you thought were really important in making sure people succeeded. I mean, we are running out of time, but I would like to end with perhaps your remarks on what makes most successful entrepreneurs that you've observed over these years.
That's actually a great question. You know, throughout the years and my experience with entrepreneurs is first, really devoted people to the idea or succeeding to the idea that they are actually working on. You know, SMEs and entrepreneurs start with one person who is eager to grow an idea. And I've seen people with passion. If the passion is not there, Ozan, don't bother. It's not going to happen. Even if the people around them don't believe in their idea, if they are personally not passionate about it, just let them drop it. But I also saw a lot of success from people that do not underestimate their environment, do not underestimate how they start. And this is really critical, because if you think that you want to cut corners, and then cutting corners is bad, even from the start. Cutting corners, when I say, I can save money in here, I can save money in there, that's wrong. That's actually really wrong. I've seen people make this mistake across the years. If you cannot afford it, that's fine. Don't afford all your support system. Just choose one. And for example, if you can't afford the 5 stars location, choose a 4 stars location. That's going to jeopardize your business. But choose the right admin team. Because you see, when you are a startup, you can't work alone. You need a support system, but choose it wisely. This is why I said I urge people to go either to come to visit us, or even to go on the website and see what exactly we do and how we can help. I've seen also entrepreneurs give up. I've seen people close and open so many times across the years, but only the ones who did not give up are the ones who actually succeeded throughout the tough times. And this is important. So it's kind of interesting to see that passion, don't cut corners, and don't give up, and really go into a support team to help you, made the entrepreneurs around me succeed.
It's quite succinct, and this is quite valuable from the perspective of entrepreneurs, coming from someone with a 40-year-old company, having worked there for more than 10 years and having seen hundreds, if not thousands, of startups. And the lesson is those that very passionately believe in their ideas and that do not give up are the ones that make it in the end. This is something I've observed myself as well, Fabienne, I must admit. It's always very, very tempting to, especially when things are not going ideal, and things are always not going in an ideal way. For example, if you're in the 6th month or perhaps the 14th month of a new business and it's not growing as fast as you expect, a lot of entrepreneurs will face this dilemma. And at that point, it's very, very tempting to scrap your idea and try to find a solution that's going to give you incredible success in the next 6 months. Now, on the other hand, there are some times and cases where this is true. Sometimes because you have already invested in an idea, like that sunk cost really paralyzes you from moving. But in my experience, if I can add my 2 cents here, it's usually the former case. It's usually the case that the business idea is not that bad, but it's just something that takes 3 years, 5 years, perhaps 7 years to mature. And when people expect to be wildly successful after 6 months because their expectations are too high, Their criteria of
Absolutely.
judgment is too high. They're judging the business and saying, this is not a successful business. It's not growing as fast. Well, guess what? It's a difficult thing. And building a business takes a lot of time. You're not going to build a multi-million-dollar business in 6 months, whatever you're going to do. If you do, and there are perhaps some people who have done it, then it's an incredible stroke of luck or stroke of genius. But in any case, it's not something to be tried to be replicated. It's not the ideal path towards success. Usually 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, I think, or perhaps 10 years or more is the amount of time it takes to really mature a business. But anyway, this was a fine chat. Thank you for all your comments. Is there anything you'd like to add as we wrap up?
I want to not to try to take a lot of your time again, and people would really make the maximum of this chat. Just to add on your point with regards to long term, I mean, I don't want to seem as a cliche. And yes, you said something. If people are succeeding within 6 months, it's just luck. But patience, and set expectations on the long run. If you believe in your idea, it will succeed. ServCorp has went from a startup into ups and downs for the past 40 years. And at a certain time, our CEO had bad debts, and then he mortgaged his house for 3 times to really build the ServCorp business, and he managed it. So It's a long-term process. People shouldn't give up. And then if people want to reach out to me personally, or even to reach me out through ServCorp, not to buy our products or be part of ServCorp if they don't want to, which I would advise them to do, but just to ask our experience or help, please feel free to share our contact details, Ozan. I mean, I'm more than happy to help.
Thank you for taking your time to join this chat, Fabienne. It was, I think, it has useful bits for entrepreneurs in London and elsewhere in the world. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.